I haven't yet spoken about the biggest thing happening at Manchester United right now, that Ralf Rangnick has been signed. He has been announced he is going to be the new interim manager of Manchester United, and you guys know this, so I wanted to talk a little bit about it myself, talk to you guys in the chat as well, but also we need to talk about the but, as I've put in the title to this stream, to this video. Ralf Rangnick is now Manchester United's interim manager, but he's not quite, because he's still not going to be on the sidelines and on the bench for the Arsenal game, and we still don't actually know if he's going to be on the sidelines and on the bench for the Crystal Palace game on the weekend, and that is due to basically the reason that they've not been able to sort out his work permit. And you might be thinking, well, Antonio Conte was able to have his work permit sorted out, other managers. I've read today that the reason is specifically Ralf Rangnick faces, this is coming from Sam Wallace in the Telegraph via United Report, I'm sure a lot of you guys follow that Twitter account. Ralf Rangnick faces a Football Association appointed independent panel in order to gain his Home Office work permit, as his recent career out of coaching means he does not meet the criteria automatically. Now, that's because obviously he's been a sporting director at the Red Bull Group, and sporting director at Lokomotiv Moscow. It's still a ridiculous situation. It's a ridiculous situation for multiple reasons. One, I'm pretty sure Brexit wasn't brought in by the idiots that voted for it for stuff like this. Somebody as highly qualified as that having to sit through an independent panel just to be able to work. Fucking stupid. And also the ridiculousness of Manchester United not executing a harsh word, not carrying out the sacking of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer before the international break, knowing that this was almost definitely going to happen. Obviously the Watford result was what it was. What if United had come back to draw that game 2-2? Would Solskjaer still be in a job for the Villarreal game? And what happened? I mean, we all know what the decision making is like a lot of the times at this club, but Ralf Rangnick is the new manager, whether he's here Thursday, whether he's here Saturday, whether he's here next week. Might be the Young Boys game, which is his first game, which is a strange one because that game's a dead rubber. But regardless, what can we expect from Ralf Rangnick? It's a mad one. What I said on a video that's actually coming out on his channel later today, where I spoke to Sharky, if you know him, for a preview for the Man United and Arsenal game. It's a great video that should be coming out later today. Is that I think this is a good decision, and the reason I think this is a good decision is not because it guarantees anything. We may be sitting here in a month's time, in a couple of weeks' time even, or at the end of the season, saying that Ralf Rangnick has had an absolute nightmare. He's lost more games than Solskjaer. The team is playing appallingly. He's going to get sacked before the end of the interim. Oh, I dropped my pen. This might happen, but the reason it's a good decision is because in a world or any environment that is based around risk, whether that is football, massive risk in football all the time, whether that's YouTube content creation, whether that's anything where you're not just sat in a job doing something boring day to day where you have complete security. Everything's about risk. And how do you mitigate and manage risk? Well, you have to make calculated, planned decisions with intended outcomes. You can't guarantee those outcomes. And what I mean by this, for once, Manchester United have actually made a decision that involves long-term planning, that involves an idea, is based on John Murtagh, who is, I get confused, Fletcher's the technical director, and I think Murtagh is the football director of Man United. I mean, who knows, because Fletcher's on the bench speaking to analysts on a headset. It's all very confusing, it's all still a mess. But he went previously, had an 8-hour meeting with Ralf Rangnick, I think a couple of years ago when he was still at the Red Bull Group. Apparently came back extremely impressed by his entire setup, his philosophy, everything like that, and has been kind of pushing to get him involved with the club for a while. Because of that, they've now got him involved with the club, and as we know, he's going to be interim for the rest of the season, and the plan is to move him into a consultancy role. That's in his contract right now for 2 years, giving him power to choose the next manager. Let me rephrase that. Giving him some input into choosing the next manager and other club-based decisions going forward. So that is a good decision because it involves mitigating risk, calculating risk, and planning. Okay, whereas hiring Solskjaer was a mad decision in many ways because it was based on literally in the moment actions. And I wanted him to get the job when he did, but as a calculated decision, it was poor. you could say hiring Van Gaal and Mourinho, they were more calculated decisions than hiring Solskjaer, but they were poorly judged because Van Gaal operated at a completely different philosophy to everything that had come before at the club from Ferguson and even Moyes to an extent. And then Jose, again, while it was calculated in some ways because he's such a proven and serial winner, his style was so different to Van Gaal's, again, and different from previous management and the team involved. It was poor because it was going to take a complete restructuring. This one, based on everything that Solskjaer has done for the club, and I know there's a narrative out there now that he's been worse than Mourinho and, it's been a disaster and where we've ended up. I disagree with that. While he obviously didn't win any trophies, I think he set up a lot of stuff behind the scenes in the back end of the club, as well as on the pitch in terms of recruitment, and the club has done a better job than recently of building structure in and around the club to better serve an incoming manager who wants to... I mean, Rangnick and Solskjaer's philosophies are actually quite similar. I know Solskjaer ended up playing much more defensive, counter-attacking football, but I think his ideas that he certainly spoke about at the beginning and some of the stuff he tried to implement and ultimately failed are actually very similar if you hear the two of them speak about winning the ball back quickly, about counter-attacking, about counter-pressing. I just don't think Solskjaer had the technical skill, knowledge, man management in terms of motivation to be able to ultimately execute on that, and ended up falling back after some bad results onto a slightly different playing style. But that's neither here nor there. So I do think it's a good decision for those reasons. It's super frustrating that we now have Michael Carrick on the bench again, although he's done perfectly well so far, for the Arsenal game, when it really should be, excitement back at Old Trafford, new manager coming in. Now, we have no idea, like I said, what will happen. We have absolutely no idea. Ralph Rangnick believes, based on the stuff that we've heard him talk about in various videos and in various seminars that he's done, that he can get his philosophy, his style of playing into players' minds within 8 weeks. And he's only got 6 months, I believe that's 24 weeks in total. What I will say is, despite United being bottom, you've probably seen the stats of Leipzig's stats, like pressing and challenges and all that sort of stuff, and United being so low, I don't think we're in a situation like we were before Solskjaer came in, where our team is the least running, where our team has the lowest fitness. I think those stats are quite selective, and I think if you chose different stats in terms of distance covered and stuff, I haven't seen them, so I don't know for sure, but certainly before this season, it was the case. I think United's players have the fitness and the robustness to be able to adapt to the system from a physical point of view better than they could have done had it been brought in 3 years ago. So it's going to be really interesting to see how quickly, and assuming Rangnick does want to implement the style, the philosophy that he talks about, the Gegenpress, which he's sort of credited for inventing in inverted commas. I mean, if you read the stories, he played a Dynamo Kiev team many years ago, and they did it to him, and all this sort of stuff. But he's definitely a professor of this style of football. It does suit a lot of the players that we have, but it's going to be interesting to see how well he can implement it, how he can build it around Cristiano Ronaldo, who's not necessarily going to sprint and do the kind of forward line pressing that you might get from another forward. Although I do think he works very hard. I think it's unfair to say that he doesn't. He does a lot of running. He puts in a shift. And then it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the results.